Okay, in this example we are now going to move on from the point where we've coloured our different menu items like so, to add a little bit of interaction. So the aim is that when we roll into a specific area, we will make these buttons appear, and if we roll outside that area, then they will disappear. Now these roughly reach up to 400 pixels in on this design, and the boundaries at about 10 pixels. So we already know a little bit about what's going to happen. Now this is just going to be quite a basic example where we just make them appear and disappear, and then as we go on we can make them do slightly more complex things, such as adding animation. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function. It's another public function, and I'll call this reveal menu, and this is going to respond to a mouse event, or it's going to be attached to a listener for a mouse event. So we need to tell the function that this is the case, otherwise the function won't run because it's expecting to receive this information. Then what we'll do is we'll start to look and see where the mouse is. And we can do that quite easily using an if statement, and the way that an if statement works, it looks like this. So you've got the keyword if, then you've got some brackets. Inside of the brackets there's a clause, it's a condition basically goes in there, and then you get a curly bracket there and a curly bracket there, and that defines the limits of the response, and the response goes between them. So we've got a condition and then a response if the condition is true. So in this case we're going to look for mouse X, and we'll say that if it's less than 400 we want to do something, and what we will do is we will make certain things move in response. So I'm just going to take these lines of code here which represent all of the buttons that we've created, or all the movie clips, and then what we're going to do is change this to .x equals 10 .x equals 10, and to be honest I can just copy and paste this bit onto the end of each line. Okay, so we'll save that and have a look at what it does. It's not going to work perfectly, but we'll give you an idea we're taking a step in the right direction. Oop, nearly forgot something there. Now I need to tell Flash to listen for this. Now this needs to go in my constructor code so that I know that it's happening from the very beginning. So the constructor runs the second that the page is loaded, and I'm going to attach this listener to the stage. So I'm going to ask the stage to listen for a specific event. We're going to listen for a mouse event. In this case we're going to listen for mouse event dot mouse move, and press return. There we go, and then I'll put the name of the function I've just created onto the listener. So whenever the mouse moves now, I'll just save that, reveal menu will be called, and it's just going to check if this condition is not true, then nothing will happen. Also, by using code hinting, it's also imported mouse event for me. So let's just check that, see what we get. So let's just move the mouse across to the left. There we go. Well, nearly all of them moved, apart from jobs, which makes me suspect there's a bit of an issue with our code. So I'm just going to go back into it. There we go. Jobs underscore MC dot label. And we just moved the label rather than the actual movie clip. There we go. So the mouse has moved, and it's less than 400, so that's true. So why are they half on and half off? This is to do with something called registration point. And when we create a symbol of any type, the registration point is defined. We've defined ours as being in the center, or I have at least. There's a chance you might not have. So what I need to do is to take everything that's in that movie clip, highlight it, like so, and notice that both layers have been highlighted blue, so I know that I've got everything on both those layers. I'm going to use the Align tool to align to stage. Now what happens is that it treats this point here, the registration point, as the stage. So if I was to go align left, everything will align with the left hand edge of that stage, or in this case the registration point. So now you should be able to double click, take these back to where they were. Notice how they've all moved relative to the position they started off. That's snapped on to there. There we go. Okay, and then we'll test it again. And nothing happens. Nothing happens because it's in exactly the same place. But let's try and move these off the stage. So I think I've got them all highlighted together. So I just hold shift to slide them along like this. We could go further off the edge, and we could do other things, like for instance we could do the visible instead, but I decided to do this. Okay, let's try that again with the mouse over to one side. There we go. So there's nothing on the screen. I roll over to the left and then they appear but do not disappear. So what we need to do is to go into our action script. Now we could add another event listener, but in this case actually all we need to do is put an else statement in. So you can put an else on the end of an if, and this is where we say, well, if this didn't happen, then do this. So I can copy all of these and then find out their original positions by selecting one of them, which is minus 395. I suppose we can go with minus 400 then. Minus 400, so that means it's 400 pixels off to the left hand side, because the left hand edge of this page is classed as 0. Flash uses a system based on Cartesian coordinates, which is x and y axes. 0 for the x axis is on the left hand side, and 0 for the y axis is in the top corner. Okay, there we go. Unlike in HTML, we don't need to give a specific unit, it's just pixels, and that's that. Okay, there we go. So on, off, on, off. So as long as the mouse falls in that kind of area, then they appear, which is similar to the visibility. Perhaps what we could also do is add an event listener to each one of those objects to have them animate in. Or we could change it ever so slightly and give them an animation where they move 400 pixels to the right using a tween, and then it's just a simple case of asking them to play until they get to a stopping point. So I think we'll do that way. Okay, so in the application I'm just going to double click on this again, and the label and the swatch will both need to be animated. I'll maybe do it in, well, at 24 frames per second. 24 is a second, we don't want it to take a second. Maybe I want it to take a fraction of that, so I'll do it in 6 frames. So right click, insert frame, again on the layer, insert frame, and then I'm going to right click, create motion tween, and also here create motion tween. And then all I need to do at the end of that sequence, by moving the playhead, is grab everything together and drag them to the left until they snap there. Okay, so if we watch what they do now, they will just continually loop. Let's move the mouse over to one side. So they're moving like so, and then you see, continually moving. And seems to be a bit of a problem with the way that it's moving or what it's moving. I think, let's just double check that. Yes. I think we might want to change the registration point of this if we can. Right, okay, what we'll do is we'll just tell them to stop in their timeline first, so that they don't happen. I'll put 2 stops in. So this is just a little command that tells it to stop. We need to have the layer selected and the first keyframe. I'll put stop. I'll also put a stop at the end of that sequence 2 by putting a keyframe in. Bringing up the code again with F9, stop again. So we want it to get to the end of the sequence and then stop. Okay, so nothing there when we right click over. Okay. Now let's just try, and rather than changing the X, tell this to play. Let's see what we get out of that. Okay. So we've got the text moving. Let's just try that with all of them and see if what changes we need to make. Okay. One more try. Okay, so contract works, which is interesting to say the least. Just pause at that point. So what we wouldn't want to do is to continue checking for the mouse being in this position, because what will happen is that this will continue to check, and really what all we want to do is listen for when we've left that area. So really, if we come back to our code, we don't need this else statement. We're going to have a different function to handle that sort of things, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the event list that we created earlier on stage, and we can do that either by typing it out or just take the original event list like this, copy it, scroll on to where we want to remove it, so that's once we've scrolled inside of that position, and change it from add event listener to remove event listener. So I'll just test that now before I create a second function. We roll in, and we'll roll out and nothing disappears back where we started off. But I'm going to create a function called hide menu. And this will be added as an event listener once we are inside of the menus area, or hot area. It's almost a hotspot, as it were. So we can do that by copying and pasting this in again. This is the starting point. And rather than it be remove, it will be add. And rather than it be reveal menu, it will be hide. There we go. And once the hide menus occurred, we will do the same thing and remove the event listener for that and reinstate the other. Okay. And remember, I cut some information out before. I'll have to put that back in, which was -400, I believe, for each one. -400. Just copy that and put it in. Encoding, saving time is perfectly acceptable, so you can copy and paste at will, especially when you start to understand how things work a little bit more, because you shouldn't be duplicating errors, but of course if you create an error and copy and paste it in a lot, you will duplicate errors. Okay, So all we need to do now is change the server. We'll remove the event listener for that, and we add the event listener for this, and then that will also mean that our code is a little bit more efficient. So in it comes. Okay, let's just add this one. One slight mistake, I need to tell it that if mouse x is greater than 400, put a curly bracket in there, surround the whole thing. Otherwise, what will happen is it will just do it continuously. There we are. The result seems the same at the moment, but it will help us in our next video when it comes to making these things come in with a little bit of a transition. Okay, so that's where we'll end this video for now.